Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Empowered Hour. I'm really excited. Today, I have my guest, Radha. Radha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I am doing really awesome. So you have a podcast that's called Radiance with Rads. And I wanted to just hear your background and hear more about that. And so tell me about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, my podcast is called Growing with God.
Oh,
But
okay.
my program and my Instagram is Radiance with
There we go. All
Rad.
right. Share, how did you come about, doing your program and doing your podcast? I want to hear it all.
Yeah, so I think for me growing up, I grew up in a very religious household. We grew up Hindu, and for me, in my experience, it was so amazing and so fun to grow up in that household and learn all about um, the culture and the religion. For us, Indian culture and Hinduism, there it just kind of infuses together. And I loved learning about the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana and all the fun rituals that we do. And I love that everything had depth and meaning to it. But because, I'm first generation, I grew up in America and I never really knew how to explain my beliefs to my friends. And I just didn't have the language for it. And I think even to this day, I struggle with it. And I've just always been so fascinated with spirituality and God and all religions, not only my religion. And there's just, the more I talk to people, even growing up as young kids, there are so many commonalities of belief and values of compassion and truth and love and service. And then as I grew up, it kind of was like almost taboo to use the word God, or I found out that for some people, the word God could be traumatic. And so there was just like so many things I was learning. I was like, but like the word God for me feels so good. And I know it can feel good for other people. And so I just like wanted to, for me, as many people may have similar experiences, 2020 was very challenging. And I just wanted a space to talk more about faith and talk more about God and talk more about the universe in a way that was relevant to me. And so that's when I was like, okay, well, I have the time, like why not now? And so I decided to launch this podcast. It was, in December of 2020. So it took me all of 2020 to muster up the courage to use my voice. I had already recorded episodes, but I wasn't really putting it out there. And I was like, no, like every time I get on the microphone or every time I have these conversations, like they were so powerful. I was like, what if just one more person could hear it? What could happen? And so that's kind of just how I started. I wanted to have more conscious conversations. I wanted to talk about spirituality. I want to talk about what it meant to me, what it meant to the other person, what their thoughts were, and just have this open dialogue. And every time I had this dialogue, it just felt like connection. I've just been craving connection and I just created that space to have that connection.
So, I hear you talking, and the next question was, how did you choose this path? But really, I'm thinking this path chose you. So, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think like I just was gifted with so much exposure to spirit, like even though it's religion, but also spirituality. Like I was exposed to meditation before it was trending. I was exposed to yoga before it was trending, right? I was exposed to all of these things and I saw what it could do for people, right? And I saw it firsthand with my own eyes. You can read about things, right? You can talk about things, but when you actually see it happen in real time, it changes everything. And so for me, my day job, I worked as a child life specialist. And for those of you who may or may not be familiar, you work in the typically you work in the hospital setting. And I worked in pediatric oncology where I served patients and families who were being diagnosed with cancer. Maybe they relapsed, wherever they were on their cancer journey. And I believe the hospital system and the medicine system can take you so far. And I do believe there is an opportunity for spirituality and medicine to infuse together. And I saw that with my patients. They were, cancer doesn't discriminate. I saw all types of people. And I've worked in different states and different populations. And I saw miracles unfold before me. I saw children who had quote unquote had a death date and they lived past that. And of course the medicine helped. Of course the doctors helped. Of course that helped. But there was something different that also helped. And I got to see that with my own eyes. I got to have the moms talk to me. I had to have the patients talk to me. I had the siblings talk to me and tell me their experience. It was something greater than themselves, right? It was something bigger, something, whatever word you want to use, universe, Jesus, Shiva, whatever word feels good to you. There was something bigger out there and they would talk about it. And I was like, yeah, something else was happening in that room that day. And it was just like it didn't matter what you looked like or what you believed in. It was just this belief that connected all of us.
Yeah, I get that too. And so was there something that specifically inspired you to do that work?
To work in the hospital setting.
Huh.
Um, it kind of again happened to me. I always knew I wanted to work with children and families. I always knew that. Even like in elementary school, when I was in fifth and sixth grade, I would help out in the kindergarten rooms. So something I've always done and enjoyed. And then my first job, even though I thought I would be a social worker and work with kids who were adopted. Like that was my kind of goal in college. But then after college, I ended up working as a preschool teacher. That job kind of just landed for me. I've taken some education courses and I taught preschool and I got my master's in human development. And there I learned about child life. One of my professors was a child life specialist. And I was like, this is interesting. You provide psychosocial support, you plan parties and Halloween and birthdays in the hospital setting. You get to do a little bit of both. And so I started volunteering in local hospitals and I just fell in love with the career. And so I just kind of followed that path for many years. I was a child life specialist for almost 7, maybe 8 years in various hospitals. And I got to work with, the most resilient patients in the world, to my belief, like the way that they handled crisis. Nobody wants to be in the hospital. I definitely don't want to be in the hospital. You don't want your kids to be in the hospital. It's not fun. But we found ways to make it fun. We found joy in the littlest of things and we got to provide support. And, people are like, oh, it's so sad. And I'm like, yes, there are days that it's horrible. And then there are days that it's miraculous. And you have parents who've lost their child and they come back to the hospital on the anniversary to bring you donuts and thank you for the help that you've done. And you're like, how are you the kindest soul to be able to offer gratitude? And then you have parents who create foundations who give gifts to kids during Christmas. You just have the most beautiful people lean back into service, right? And you're just so inspired by them that you want to continue to give because being nice and compassionate in the hospital goes in every area goes such a long way, but especially in the hospital makes all the difference.
I'm sure. Yeah, I know with my experiences of friends and family who have been through that time in their life, it is so comforting to have that support. And I do see the faith coming into play and being a huge component for, the trajectory of where they go and how their life unfolds at that point. So we met through I Fund Women of Color, which is really awesome. I mean, communities of women, I think it's so important. I love what you're doing. And I just wanted to see, what do you believe your community inspires with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I believe in baby steps. I believe in really small steps that are sustainable because for me, I used to be and still can be an all or nothing person, right? Either you're all in or you're all out. And
Yeah.
that can work, right? But in 2020, that didn't make sense for me, especially in that season of my life. And so I am on a mission to inspire women to love themselves 5% more. And when I say 5% more, I mean that because it is the little things that take up the most space in our hearts, right? And so if we can, drink tea mindfully, if we can sit in the sun, if we can meditate for 2 minutes, if we can journal, if we can take time to just sit with our thoughts in whatever way is possible, whatever way brings presence. I don't want to tell someone how they should love themselves. That is their own journey, their own definition to create. But
Yeah.
whatever inspires them to give them that feeling of loving themselves 5% more, that's what I want to do because that's what brought me sustainability in my business. That's what's brought me sustainability in my relationships. That's what really rebirthed me during my darkest times.
Yeah. I know that self-care, I talk about self-care a lot in the work that I do. People don't necessarily connect that with self-defense, but when you are at your best, when you have given yourself all of the nourishment that you need and the sleep that you need and all these other things, you stand more confidently. You walk with a purpose. And I think that it is so important as you're going through life to really take that extra time to do these little things for yourself, because so many times as women, we're just givers and we give away so much that sometimes our cup is empty. And it's very hard when our cup is empty to keep on giving in the way that we need to, and also serve ourselves in the process. So this is interesting. So how has your business evolved since it started, and where do you see it going in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think my business just had a very um, unique, but also like common trend. And so I started my business and I was like, okay, I'm going to make 6 figures my first year and it's going to be so great. And oh, yeah, like I got this, right? Like I know what I'm doing. And it was just a lot of learning, a lot of rejection, a lot of no's. And it was hard. I was like, oh, okay. Like, oh, okay, yeah. It took me like a while to really get my first paying client. And that taught me so much. And I going back to filling your own cup, once I felt good about myself and aligned in myself and so like worthy of the offerings, of the prices, of what I wanted to be, how I want to show up, there was just something internally that clicked that externally it showed up. And I was like, oh, I have something here. I have something here. But for me, I had to feel secure in myself. And that's how it started to show up in my business. So, you know, this is my second year running Pink Rose Wellness, running Radiance with Rads. And now I've served over 30 clients through my 3-month container. And now I do ongoing sessions. I work now full time as a coach for Headspace. So I provide wellness coaching on a digital health platform. And now my business is now sort of like now my little baby on the side, and I get to do whatever I want with it, which is amazing. So now I run 4-week programs for clients because that's what I can give energetically with the coaching that I already do. And people are loving these shorter programs. I feel like people are at a different frequency and wavelength, and they kind of know what they want, but they're just wanting that extra support to amplify their healing process. So I've integrated energy healing. I've integrated chakras work. I've integrated yoga, and I'm a solution focused based coach. So I basically believe that my client knows what's best for themselves. I don't provide solutions. I facilitate questions, safety, and clarity so that the client can pull out their solutions. They can utilize their intuition. So I have exercises and tricks and tips to get them really tight, really, really close to their intuition. And then along with that, now for the rest of this year, it's my intention to create for free 111 affirmations. I am just affirmation work has changed my life, and I want to give a piece of that to people. I want to make it accessible. I believe wellness is accessible, and I want to make it even more accessible. And so I've probably given away 25 affirmations right now, and I'm wanting to give away a total of 111. So it's a 15-minute coaching call, plus we create an affirmation that is unique to you, and I create a wallpaper so you can put it on your cell phones. It can go into your subconscious mind and really reprogram your mindset. And so right now it's really about slow and steady and sustainable 4-week programs and affirmations. And over the next 5 years, I hope to create a community of where we can come together and share space, and we can uplift each other, remind each other, like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I am doing the work. Did I celebrate myself? Did I acknowledge it? Let me celebrate someone else. Let me get inspired by them. Let's meditate. Let's do affirmations. Let's do sound healing. Let's connect. Like, that's where I see my um, community growing into where we do the work together, because that's where magic happens. At least for me, most of my transformations happened in community versus by myself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I love that you're doing all of the affirmations and everything as well, just because that's a part of my daily practice. And when I'm working with clients, that's also something that I'll encompass in working with them, is just because I think that it is so important for them to see those aspects and repeatedly have them in their life. And it does make a huge change to your brain, to how you look at life, how you think about it, how you process. Um, so when you were growing up, you had talked to me a little bit about this, but when you were growing up, what did you want to grow up to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it changes. If I think back, I don't have the best memories as a child. I really don't know what I wanted to be, if I'm being honest. But I know in the 7th and 8th grade, I really wanted to be a therapist. I really wanted to be a psychologist. I really wanted to have my own practice. And then that shifted to speech therapy, physical therapy, social work, all similar. Um, but I knew deeper than that, instead of like a term or title, I wanted to spend my time supporting children and families. Like, I knew that's where I wanted to be. I have a big family, I have a big extended family. And so I've always been surrounded by kids and always been surrounded by different personalities. And I know when your family system and you have a supportive family system, that can be so supportive and transformative for the individual.
For sure. Yeah. And I just love, and now you being a coach, I think that you can encompass all of those different things that you wanted to do. Because I know that for me doing empowerment coaching, I add in, my psychology background. I utilize so much work when it comes to like race and equity, or I do a lot when it comes to affirmations and self-care and all these things that you wouldn't necessarily think like go along with self-defense coaching, but it goes along with being an empowerment coach and supporting people. So I just love that you have these programs and they're in place and you're able to serve people in so many different ways and add in all of the different pieces from your life. Funny question. as we're talking about all of your talents and everything that you do, if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. My boyfriend is obsessed with Marvel. And so we watched all of, like, I am so behind. But with him, the past 2 years, I caught up on almost all the movies and all the TV shows. And now they have this really cute young Miss Marvel who's of South Asian background, which is so cool to see. And I didn't even know that character existed. So I was like, what? And so that's not the question you asked. But I got so excited when you said superpower. And so, like, I mean,
You can be Miss Marvel.
I think, like, as silly as it sounds, I feel like more than like being invisible or flying or like all of that stuff, I think like it would be kindness. I think if I could be kind to others and myself, I think that would be right. Like, that's something I'm growing and can be, but to be that all of the time, I think that would be my superpower.
Nice. Well, I think you've got that in spades. Um, if you could say a piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I think I would say it's okay. Everything is okay. It's going to be okay. Even if it doesn't feel like it isn't, it will be okay. And that there is no timeline to joy. There is no timeline to getting the perfect job or the perfect house or the perfect spouse or any of those things. There is no timeline. Um, and that if you love yourself through this process, it'll make it so much more tolerable. And I would also tell my younger self, don't waste so much time worrying about what other people think. I think I have spent so much time and energy worrying about what other people think. First of all, you will never know what anyone thinks, even if they tell you. So many people lie to themselves. Why would they tell you the truth? I know that's so harsh, but it's a reality. But what other people think, you will never have control over, and they themselves might not even know what they're thinking. So I just wish I had saved my time and energy and poured into other hobbies and activities. And that's what 2020 was. I flipped my script and I was like, I could worry about X, Y, and Z, what they're thinking, or I could build a podcast, or I could build a business. And I still worry about what other people think. Don't get me wrong, but it's so much less. And I think I've noticed a difference in my energy and how I carry myself when I shifted my script.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes a huge difference in your life, because the fact is that especially as a business owner, there are going to be people who want to do the work that you do, see what you're doing, and it's like, oh, I could do this better, I could do this a different way. If you constantly were worried about that instead of focusing on your purpose, you would miss out on all of the amazing things that you're doing and not be able to celebrate the wins. And the wins, in business, as you know, it's like some of the wins are really little, but they're amazing when you think about them in the big picture and you look back at what you've been through in order to get where you are. Just all of the wins that got you to the stage that you're at right now. It's huge. So yeah, I mean, like, I guess you kind of answered the next question, but if you could share some words of wisdom to women and girls out there, what would that be?
I would say that you are enough, you're doing enough, and you are worthy. Because you breathe, you are worthy. You don't need any reason, any clothing, any person, any title, any relationship status. You don't need that promotion or that salary bump. Like, you deserve all that and you will get all of that. And you are just worthy as you are. I think hustle culture has put so much pressure onto our bodies, onto our women, onto every human. And we're rewriting that story collectively, but hustle culture tells us that because, especially for us immigrant children, if you're not working, you're not doing enough. Like, you make your self-care list a to-do list. I hear you, I feel you, I've been there. You can sit and rest, and resting is okay. You are allowed not to be productive. That's what I would say.
For sure. And yeah, I think that it's great, the points that you're bringing up. I think the pandemic has really helped a lot of people to get away from that hustle culture, just because it's made us slow down. I know that moving to Maui, I was such a workaholic looking back at my time living in Washington, and I got here and everything was slower. I'd be like, when is the deadline? When can I see this? And they'd be like, okay, maybe in like a month or something like that. I'm like, what? So it like makes you slow down. And I think when you do take the time to actually slow down, there's something very beautiful about it. Because then you get to find your purpose. You get to do really amazing work for the world. And I think when you get so caught up, like your head is so boggled in the day to day, you miss that. So you might be missing out on your biggest gift that you're going to give everyone. Which brings me to the next one of what is your biggest wish for the world today?
I think it goes back, it sounds so silly to some people maybe, but I really think if we loved ourselves more, if we loved ourselves 5% more, that would shape our internal world and also shape our external world. Could you imagine if somebody cut you off the street, but you loved yourself 5% more? You can let that go, right? Instead of creating a ripple effect, you could, imagine you see an elderly person walking and you open the door for them, right? Like, just these small little things, right? You see someone who needs help getting up and you give them your hand. If we could just create that ripple effect of kindness. I want our children to feel safe, especially certain things that are happening in the world. I want children to feel safe at school. Growing up, when I went to school, I remember I saw my sixth grade classroom. I went back home recently, and it was on the edge of the street. There never used to be a gate, even though it was a main street. There never was a gate there. There was just this sense of safety, right? Like, you could just walk to class. Now there's a gate. And I understand why there's a gate, but it just reminds me of all the protection we need to build in this world. And I'm like, while we're growing collectively, if we can remember to be kind, right? It's easy to be kind to your friends and the people that you like and the people that agree with you. But can we be kind to the people who think differently?
Yeah.
And
Very true.
that, I think that can build the momentum that we need. Collectively.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you've already addressed this, as far as how your business is part of that change. But are there any other aspects of it that you feel like you really want to share, how this hits home? You are making sure that people really take that extra step when it comes to kindness. In your coaching practice, what are certain exercises or different activities that you do with your clients to make sure that they are change agents for the world?
Yeah, I think, I really believe in simplicity, because if it's simple, you remember it. And then if you remember it, you actually will do it, right? So that's really what a lot of my teachings and beliefs come from. And so it goes back to affirmations. We have 70,000 to 90,000 thoughts a day. 80% are repeated. So even if you change 5% of your language, it will have a profound effect. And so when you can figure out the stories you tell yourself, that's why I love custom affirmations. So it's unique to your stories that you tell yourself. A
Yeah.
common story is I'm not good enough, right? I'm not worthy enough. Something I've had to deal with, and something many other people have to deal with. If I can change that thought, right, with affirmations, it really affects how I show up in this world. Because if I don't think I'm good enough, then maybe I don't think you're not good enough. Or maybe I think that person's not good enough. But if I think I'm good enough and I think you're good enough and that person's good enough, that creates a whole different energy in the room for us to build each other up, empower each other, right? And so just by saying, I am good enough, I do enough, I am worthy, and you say it when every time you wash your hands, right? My trick is you pair it with something that you already do. Every time you put on chapstick, you say an affirmation. Every time you grab something from your purse, every time your best friend texts you, it pops up on your cell phone. It's bleeding into your subconscious mind so you can reprogram your mindset. And so I integrate a lot of neuroplasticity and subconscious work into my coaching calls, because I know the stories we tell ourselves matter. And I believe every word is an affirmation. And so it just goes back to like the way that we speak to ourselves matters. And if I can change my internal dialogue, that means I can change my external dialogue. And that just brings it full circle. So we can have, we have a lot of differences in this world, but we actually have so much more in common. And so if we can talk about it and talk about it with nonviolent language, it changes the game forever.
Sure. Well, Radha, you are so inspiring and I love the work that you're doing. How can others find you if they are watching this and they're like, oh my God, I want her as my coach. She's amazing. Yeah, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I say voice notes are my love language. Instagram, Radiance with Rads. That's Radiance with WITH Rads RADS. I love voice notes. I love hearing from you. If you want a free affirmation, DM me, voice note me, and my website is my name, www.radhadalal.com, RADHADALAL.com. And just thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with you. And thank you for those watching and listening, the replay, the live, whatever it is. Just thank you so much. And I hope you just take what serves you and leave the rest. Even if it's one sentence, one word, that touches your soul, I hope you keep that with you.
Awesome. Well, Radha, thank you so much for coming on. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.